So, here comes part three. And one of my more favorite parts of the book because it's the most fun to read. Aside from the kids going out grocery shopping for clothes, which is also fun. So, yeah. I'll probably go into that later on. Probably make a video talking about tidbits. Speaking of which, I have a theory to come across because you know how you go to sleep at night and you just have a random burst of genius and you just kind of have to get it out there? Thankfully, this one didn't disappear like most other things. But I want to get it out of there as quickly as possible. Thankfully, as soon as the kids go ahead and decide to browse around the school pretending to be students, they decide to split up. Millard's job is to go ahead and rifle around through the staff folders and maybe see if there was a student that may have gotten in trouble, how to go to the office, talk to a counselor, get some discipline, detention, yada yada yada. uh Bronwyn and Enoch have to go to the PE fields, and talk to the students over there. And despite the fact that Jacob and Emma are on shaky ground after basically breaking up, they have to hang out together and go to the cafeteria and, gossip with a couple of students over there. They managed to get a little bit of information before some quote unquote staff members goes and tries to wrangle up Jacob and Emma before they escape. And by the time they manage to get out into the hallway, they see a group of zombie cats wandering around down the hall. And of course, Enoch is laughing his ass off about it because apparently Enoch doesn't know how to socialize with people or can't exactly socialize with people his own age. I mean, we kind of knew that already. But Bronwyn is better at it than he is, so Enoch decided to just wander off, found a science class, and discovered that apparently the subject of the class that day was to, cover dissection. And they were gonna cut open the cats and to see what their workings were on the inside, for science. And Enoch found out it was stupid, and apparently Bronwyn thought it was absurd too. And I'm just sitting there boy, if you were in my school, I would really hate for you to do the same thing to the dissection we did, because back in when I was a kid, there was a few things I dissected. I dissected the squids on Catalina Island as a field trip, and the ink gland burst, so there was ink everywhere. Ugh, I don't want to know what Enoch would do with that. I hate cephalopods. Yeah, no, I actually don't like that. God. And the thing that I dissected as a teenager in high school was pigs. Now, I thought we were going to dissect, baby pigs, after they were born, but I was wrong and mistaken. We dissected pig fetuses before they were born. Yeah. Yeah. And it was fascinating to cut into them, maybe because I'm a very desensitized type of person to animal abuse and cruelty. Let me say that right now. I mean, if I watch a movie and I see an animal get kicked around, I'm probably not going to flinch. But if I see a kid get smacked by an older adult, I'm probably going to, flinch a little. Maybe even cry. I don't know what's wrong with me. And another thing we dissected was owl pellets. So chances are, if Enoch was anywhere near my class, he'd probably go for the squid or the pig fetuses. Probably the pig fetuses, because that's more disturbing. But moving on, apparently they go ahead and raise the fire alarm. Just so they can get out of there because things are kind of going downhill, and there's already people, staff members, aware of them, so they decided to make an escape. And they run into Millard and they get outside. And, Jacob, apparently Millard was already talking to a girl, and Jacob's already up to here with, his friends kind of not holding their peculiarity abilities a secret. I mean, first it's Emma burning one of the ladies that tried to grab her, and then it's Enoch making zombie cats chase after some cheerleaders, and then it's Millard flirting with a girl, and even you, the reader, would be sitting there like, what? And I was like, what are they doing? Are they trying to get themselves killed? They already got a guy, going after their asses and trying to, capture them and kill them. Aren't they concerned about whites or hollows or any of that stuff? Nah, they just want to, do some anarchy in school. Apparently, Millard actually managed to come across a girl who happened to be friends with the peculiar girl that they're after, and apparently Millard really likes this girl. Because they're gonna meet up at a coffee shop, the most generic place to start off a date in every fanfic ever. You know what I'm talking about, you Clance shippers. All of you do! Don't tell me otherwise! And, Millard says they can't meet up with her until, 8 o'clock, so they decide to, go chill out in the car and, go ahead and drive over and meet up at the place. Unfortunately, Enoch may have also not done some raising of the dead kitties at the school. He may have also swiped some formaldehyde, and they decided to take a nap in the car while they were at it, and apparently the bottle tipped over and splashed over the group and over the car, so they kind of smell like dead people. Well, not like dead people, but people covered in formaldehyde, you know what I'm saying. So they had to go to a gas station and, as best as they can, clean up. And apparently, even Jacob noted that Millard must have really liked this girl if he was trying really hard to scrub off, the formaldehyde smell off of himself with what little he had. I mean, it was just hand soap. But, once, Millard himself kind of liked that, what he smelled like, they decided to, go head out, meet up Lily at the cafe. And this is kind of like the cutest scene I've ever seen besides Hugh and Fiona's romance. I mean, it's up there. And I can say for sure that I ship Hugh and Fiona. I want them back so bad. But Millard and Lily's blossoming romance is definitely adorable. Because apparently they have, and this is where I get into my theory part of the video, because I don't trust Ransom Briggs on this. After what he did in Hollow City, I'm not going to trust him on this. So, but let me get this out of the way. Let me just go ahead and tell you what happened in this chapter with the two being cute and flirty with each other. And I'm gonna tell you my theory. Okay. So what happens is that Millard sits down, introduces his friends to Lily. Even Lily has her little iPod out, and he picks up one of the earbuds and puts it up to his ear. And apparently, they have similar taste in music. Some classic stuff. I wouldn't know. I don't even know the artist, unfortunately. And then there's some stuff where Millard drops his age, which happens to be in the 90s. Awkward. And normally you would think, if a girl's hearing like someone say, like he sounds 16, but like he says, I'm 96 years old. It's like, oh, how cute and charming. And it did sound like, kind of like that. It's like, oh, that's funny. And Jacob and his friends are looking at each other like, what's he doing? Why is he giving this stuff away so easily? And apparently, even Lily is kind of getting all flirty with Millard. She's like running her finger up his arm, and it's like, even Jacob's like thinking, I feel like I'm just butting in on a date. This just feels wrong. And I'm just like sitting there reading this, like, yeah, it does feel like a date. What is this scene doing in this book? Shouldn't they be talking about where to find that chick with the peculiar ability? And after some much done flirting, they do get to talk to get Lily to trust them a little bit by having the group confess their peculiarities and their abilities and what they went through, which is very similar to the girl who happens to be named Noor. I'm probably botching that pronunciation. I'm sorry, Indian people. And Millard, of course, is the last one to come out and say that he's peculiar, and his peculiarity is invisibility. And apparently the girl says, "Oh, she already know that," because apparently she's partially blind. She has like 10% eyesight, so she can kind of see shapes. So she kind of knew when when a voice coming from air showed up, started talking to her. But apparently, having an invisible boyfriend isn't a turnoff. It's not a deal breaker. And we already knew that Millard was kind of hoping that because she was blind, maybe kind of going with the facade that he's visible to her would work out, because there's a scene in Hollow City where while he's talking to Jacob, he mentions that he doesn't hate being peculiar, because it's part of who he is, and it's something that he's proud of. But sometimes there's some days where he wish he could just turn it off. And shortly after that, there was a pretty girl walking by, and he even commented on it, calling her pretty. And Jacob kind of gave him like this pitying look, and Millard got pretty upset about it, like saying, "Don't look at me like that." And like Jacob's like, "Look at you like what?" And like Millard's like that. I don't know what you're talking about. And then Millard, of course, disrobed himself in the train car and then just walked off. But with Lily, he's pretty happy, because it feels like, for a moment, because she was blind, he could have a chance dating someone. But he's probably even more ecstatic because, even though she knew he was invisible and she knew she was talking to a peculiar invisible person, possibly dating him isn't a deal breaker for him. For her, I mean. So that's like, that's, you know, awesome for him. So they managed to win her over by getting her to convince her to talk to her friend Nora. So she goes and walks off to go ahead and text her friend. Apparently, there's like a text speech thing she can use because she doesn't actually text. She just does the text speech modification. And Millard's like, "Oh, I can come with you," and she's like, "No, I can do it by myself." And while she's away, Millard turns to his friends and says, "Fellows, I'm in love." And this is the part of the chapter where I'm like, "Oh, that's so sweet. He finally has a girlfriend." And it's like also at the same time where if I'm gonna continue talking about this because Millard and Lily are walking arm in arm together, all over the place while she's leading them over to her Nora's place. And, once they finally get Nora to trust the group somewhat and even agree to, join them and, go to this loop they have arranged for her, there's like this big helicopter and SWAT team comes in and bombards them and attacks them and whatnot. And it's like the timing was too perfect. Now here's where I get into my theory. What if Lily was one of those people that was working for the group that was after Nora? See, for some reason, the people after Nora aren't quote unquote whites. Apparently, they're someone else. And apparently, that group after Nora has been after her and other peculiars like her for this peculiar ability and other peculiar abilities for quite some time. Like, it's just specific. And the fact that Lily is friends with her, and her abilities woke up, and that these staff members came to the school and started harassing Noor. And it just, does it not seem far fetched? But then again, Noor at some point, left the school and started hiding out and abandoned a construction site. And according to what I know, Lily has been stopping by every day, giving her food so that Noor doesn't, starve. And if Lily was, a traitor, wouldn't it be easier for her to just, point to her comrades? Hey, this is where she's at. Go get her. Instead of, just kind of building up her trust more and more, uh, and then just tearing it down with all these other peculiars involved in the process. And not only that, but getting another peculiar boy to fall in love with her along with it. And it's also not only that, but I know she's already aware of Nora's abilities. But the fact that she doesn't freak out or kind of like at everyone else's proclamation of their abilities and whatnot, or even doubt them in some way, or even abandon Nor when her abilities start happening. It could just be like me being hopeful and saying maybe it's just Lily being a good normal friend, Or maybe Ransom Riggs has more in store for the next two books. But that's my theory. Um, I'm hoping Millard and Lily is a genuine ship and that Lily isn't some sort of traitor and that she really does care about Nor as a friend. That is my genuine hope because this theory came across me randomly at night while I was trying to fall asleep. But also at the same time, it seems kind of convincing. But anyway, like I said, they go find Nor, they convince her, they gain her trust. But at the same time, they get attacked, they escape, they take a subway. Apparently, Bronwyn, when she protected her friends from one of the guys that was gonna shoot them, apparently shot her, and shot her with like a trank dart. So she's a little woozy, and they were planning on going to a hospital, and instead they go to a, a restaurant, and the similar situation where they ran away from the tourist trap in Florida, except they ended up going to this restaurant instead. And there's like another piece of evidence of Lily maybe being traitorish because she's constantly encouraging her friends to go to the hospital where there's probably a hospital staff there to that are probably not actually hospital staff that could be there to take Nor away. You know what I'm saying? But in the end, the kids, after smelling their favorite foods, they kind of get overwhelmed and they go into the restaurant. They get tricked into going inside this loop. Except Lily, because she's normal, I think. I got so many questions coming up for the next volume. More in store. But and of course, they end up going through this nightmare fuel uh, house of horrors. I already talked about it. Basically, gave me goosebumps. Where they come across a bunch of rooms with a bunch of creepiness. It was just all sorts of wrong. Like it, I don't know if it just felt like maybe Ransom Riggs had a fever dream and he just decided to put that down in a book, and I'm like, and basically they finally come across Frankie, who's she's peculiar, but she's in the guise of a little girl. God, she's a little annoying little girl. She's got this manservant she calls Poop. And she really likes dolls. Like, boy, does she love dolls. And she's going through the other kids, and she's like, what do you do? And they're like, I do this. And she's like, nope. And I was like, what do you do? And it's like, I do this. And then she's like, nope, you suck. And it goes on and on like that until she stops by Enoch. And Enoch explains, well, I do what you do, but different. And she's like, that's cool, you're mine. But everyone else sucks. I'm getting rid of them. And she finally plans to sell him off, but keeps Enoch instead. Poor Enoch. It's probably the one moment in my life that I actually feel bad for that poor little guy. Good God. And basically, they're all in this auction room with three other peculiars. And basically, the three other peculiars are trying to explain to him, oh no, we're not buying you, we're freeing you. It's just you're gonna have to pay off your debt to us, and then in a few months, and then who knows? Maybe if you like us enough, maybe you'll want to keep working with us. And it's like, you're buying them. You're buying them. You can't sugarcoat it any other way. In any case, the kids managed to break free of their bonds, and the other peculiars that are about to buy them are, about to challenge them to a fight, and the peculiar kids are, you know, they're. It's basically a pissing contest right here. Okay, it only stops right there once, the peculiars that were about to buy them is like, okay, so what are you here for? And then Jacob, tells them that they were going to take Nior and, free her to another loop. And apparently that's illegal because that's considered kidnapping. So they're arrested, sent to Leo. And Leo confuses them for Californios, even though they kept on persisting and saying that they're from England and Jacob's from Florida. You can't win with a guy. And basically, Jacob lets slip that he may be related to someone that may have done some peculiar freeing and hollow killing. And apparently, this Leo guy might really hate Abraham Portman and H's guts, and by extension, hate Jacob Portman's guts. In fact, considering the fact that the guy didn't get a chance to kill Abraham because Abraham kidnapped, whatever vernacular you want to use, his niece, and killed her. He plans on killing Jacob. The only saving grace Jacob has is that Miss Peregrine happened to stop by one of the loops that they rescued, which was the hotel loop. And apparently the opera lady over there, which I didn't mention, but there's an opera lady at the loop. And she happens to be related to Leo. And she vouches for the kids. And apparently, Miss Peregrine also had to show up at the nick of time. And apparently, Enoch, even though the kids were under this spell by Frankie, because she has this telekinetic control over people, apparently when they shocked Frankie by breaking out of their bonds and pinning her down on the ground. Apparently they broke free of their control over her, and by extension Enoch did, and he broke out of the loop and called Miss Peregrine and told her where they were at. So it was a mission failure, and Miss Peregrine took her over to Devil's Acre. Jacob had to get patched up because he got beat up a little by Leo. And they were basically getting grounded and getting punishments. And I'll talk about the last book. It's going to be a little shorter, but it's getting to be a long video enough as it is already. So bye, guys. Keep reading.